without this level of hands-on leadership. These guys are great. I'd like to say briefly a few words about the concept of philanthropic giving, at least as it was taught to me by my father when I was 12 years old. My dad was a Russian immigrant who owned a meat and grocery market in Charlestown, and he had a part-time employee named Eddie, who worked in the store all through high school, and now that he was through with high school, he was looking forward to going on to college. At about the same time, my dad thought that I was rapidly becoming a juvenile delinquent because I spent every waking hour in a bowling alley. And he was correct. And he thought if I could replace Eddie, it would take me out of the bowling alley and I might learn a thing or two. So beginning the very next Saturday, I had a new job working alongside Eddie so that Eddie could teach me the ropes. In the process of learning the job, I learned a little bit about Eddie. He was raised by a single mother who had to hold down 2 jobs just to support them. Every cent he earned in my dad's store went into a college savings fund. But the most important thing Eddie told me was how fortunate I was to have such a generous father. The last thing a 12-year-old believes is his father is generous. I was puzzled and I asked him why he felt this way, and Eddie told me about a conversation he'd had with my dad just a week before. He told him that he couldn't afford to quit his job because he hadn't saved enough money to cover the difference in costs between what college was going to cost and what scholarships were going to provide. And he was going to have to work for at least another year to save enough money to cover the difference. Well, apparently my dad told him not to worry. My dad, would cover any cash shortfall that Eddie had for the next 4 years. Now, in order to appreciate how I felt, you need some perspective. I never believed my father was generous, believe me. Most 12-year-olds they're incapable of making that determination because the only financial interaction they have with their parents is, well, the first sentence starts with gimme, or I want, or can I have, and fill in the blanks, a catcher's mitt, a basketball, a bicycle, or whatever. And if the parent says yes, well, they're generous. If no, they're not a cheat. They're frugal. That's what they're. Unfortunately, my dad was more complicated than the average dad. Anytime my sister or I asked for something that cost money, it immediately triggered what we came to call the milk lecture. And it always started the same way. Do you know how many quarts of milk I have to sell at a 1 penny profit per quart to pay for a new basketball, bicycle? Fill in the blanks, you know what I'm saying. The bottom line was, he never said yes in the moment. Now, approaching the age of 80 and learning only a little bit along the way. I mean, he was a class guy. He always came through overtime. We may not have been the first kids on the block to get a bicycle or a basketball or whatever, but we weren't the last ones either. In any event, how often does a 12-year-old get the opportunity to get over on his father? I couldn't resist the opportunity. While we were driving home from the store that evening, without any preamble, I looked at him and I said, "Hey, Dad, how many quarts of milk are you going to have to sell to keep Eddie in college for the next 4 years?" He didn't answer at first, but he did pull the car over to the side of the road, and he just sat there looking at me. And I started to get scared because he didn't say anything for a full minute. And I just wondered if I'd gone too far and he was going to get really mad at me. Well, after a full minute of silence, he said, "I can only hope that you're old enough to appreciate the difference between a father trying to teach his son the value of $1 and a caring human being trying to help a deserving other human being who obviously needs help." And I looked at him and I said, "I'm not sure I understand. Tell me why you did it." And he said, "There are 2 reasons. First, I was brought up to believe, and our faith teaches us, that if a deserving person or organization genuinely needs help, and we have the ability to help without hurting our own family, then in addition to the ability, we have the responsibility to help." And I said, "And the second reason is?" And he said, "Even more important, when you're able to help, it just makes you feel so damn good." Well, when he answered, and this was new for me, so help me God, for the first time in my life, he was speaking in a tone of voice that he only used when he was talking to other adults. He never spoke to me in that tone of voice before that. And then he reached over and he put his arm around my shoulder. And he hugged me as he said it. And I don't know if it was the tone of voice or the hug that got to me, but since that day, almost 70 years ago, whenever I make a charitable contribution, even when I buy Girl Scout cookies, I can't help but think of the phrase, "It makes you feel so damn good." Well, under the circumstances, Lee and I want to thank all of you for giving us this ability to feel so damn good.